To discuss issues on breastfeeding and other postnatal concerns, we're joined by Victor Ajieroh, Senior Program Officer with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight, and might we say, happy breastfeeding week, if there's any such thing.
Sure.
With a 29%, breastfeeding rate in Nigeria, I mean, this very dismal figure. But when you say babies should be breastfed for at least 6 months exclusively, the question is, how realistic really is it, considering the socioeconomic, realities that Nigerians find themselves?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's possible. And years back in the 90s, we had just 2% level of rate of exclusive breastfeeding. But when government launched the baby-friendly hospital initiative, with that focus, it rose to 17%. And it stayed for 17% for a while, with additional effort with government and partners working together. In 2018, it came up to 29%. If you look at like some states in Lagos, exclusive breastfeeding rate is over 50% already.
Yeah, 51%.
Yeah, if you look at Kaduna State, in some intervention that FHI 360 Alive a Tribe did, working with other partners, it's also increased, to about 4 in the intervention areas, actually from about 40 to 46%. If you look at countries like Rwanda, it's over 70%. It's challenging. But when people understand the benefit and they're laying a foundation for the growth and development of the child and the benefits for the mother and the long-term implications for health at the onset of adulthood, and then so people make that sacrifice. And that's why creating the right enabling environment, a supportive environment, is challenging. But when mothers are committed and supported, it's possible.
And and that speaks to my point, because breastfeeding is so normal and natural. I mean, to feed a baby, should be. Yeah. But women still face stigmatization breastfeeding. I mean, if a woman should be breastfeeding a baby and post such a picture, she'll more likely get negative comments that it's inappropriate. But for instance, if she wore a bikini and posted, I imagine she would get some other comment. It wouldn't matter. Why do we still have that challenge?
Well, I think it's something we need to address, and context differs from context to context. In rural areas, not much, but in urban areas, with urbanization, education, and people want to, so I think we need to educate people and help them understand that the woman has a right to be respected, to do what she needs to do, especially when she wants to breastfeed. It is not obscene, it is not immoral, it is fundamental, and she should be respected and supported to do that.
Help us understand why it's important to breastfeed. Yes, that's been highlighted in that report, but we need you to, we cannot belabor that point. And the point being made that babies must breastfeed for at least 24 months. And the first 1,000 days of life, help us underscore, help us understand exactly why it's important.
Yeah, I think it's something very natural, and that's why over 90% of Nigerian children are breastfed.
Over 90%?
Yeah, ever breastfed.
Right.
But what we're talking here is, how do you ensure they are properly breastfed? And that has to do with initiating breastfeeding early. Immediately after birth, skin-to-skin contact, place the child, and then ensure that the mother, it helps that to continue. Then what you also do is to ensure that the mother continues to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months without water. The fact is that the child does not need water for the first 6 months, because breast milk has enough water in addition to all other nutrients. Now you ask, why breastfeeding? It's so natural. Number one is that it's one of the best natural gifts that God has given and made available, that when the child gets that, is aligned, is designed, is created to meet the needs of the child, and therefore it helps brain development, physical growth, and all that. And then also, when children are properly breastfed, they don't have ear infections, acute respiratory infections, bouts of diarrhea that you see that leads to neonatal and child mortality, and so that's why it's so great. It has other benefits. It's economical, even though challenging, but if rightly done. And so it creates that emotional bond. And you understand the emotional aspect of child development, and then the mother-child dyad, very important. So there's a whole lot of reasons why.
Tell us also the long term, because you did mention the long term.
Yes.
Please.
When children are properly breastfed and they adopt healthy practices, the likelihood of being obese is very low. Where a child who eats other things and not breast milk is likely to be obese. And then so at the onset of adulthood, the risk of diet-related non-communicable diseases is high. And that's why you lay a great foundation for the future health of the child when the child breastfeeds. And breastfeed into the second month. It's encouraged. We know that Nigerians usually breastfeed longer, as long as possible, but that trend is getting challenged now. It's shocking to see that the median duration of breastfeeding is about 9 months now. It's very shocking. And that's why we're all trying to use the opportunity of the breastfeeding week to re-engage Nigerians around this important thing, and then see how government, workplace, private sector, formal and informal places provide the right support to enable the mother to breastfeed as she should.
We need to step up. But this commemoration, some people are wondering, why do we need to even commemorate breastfeeding week when it's so natural and basic? But here we are, 29%, still low. But this commemoration again comes at a time when the world is facing a pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. I wonder if there have been any impacts. What sort of impact has this pandemic had on, breastfeeding and the efforts, if there are gains reversed or any impact at all? Yeah,
we don't have empirical data on the negative impact of the pandemic on breastfeeding. But we know that the pandemic affected how people access the healthcare services. And so we can say that it would have affected breastfeeding in addition to every other thing that was affected. And so we're trying to understand that, and then how do we bring everything back to the pre-pandemic level? And now that normalcy is getting restored, and that's why you use moments like this to re-energize and turbocharge their ecosystem to create the right level of support.
But is there any difference between breast milk, breastfed milk, and expressed milk for the modern day woman and women who have other health challenges that may not allow them breastfeed directly?
Expressing breast milk is encouraged. There's no problem about it, because if the woman needs to walk and she has fed the child and leaves the child at the crèche, she expresses the milk, and then that child can be fed. So it's stable under room temperature, and so it's the same breast milk. So it's encouraged, and it's one way that working mothers can ensure they continue to breastfeed.
Okay, I was just going to ask you for that. We document these benefits for breastfeeding. However, we cannot overlook the women who cannot breastfeed. So what's the best option for such women? They cannot breastfeed for medical reasons.
Maybe she just had a cesarean section,
or whatever it could be.
Well, I think it's about, we need to talk about the support that the women need before we conclude that she cannot breastfeed.
Fantastic.
We need to understand her situation, the peculiarity. We need to understand what went wrong, and we need to be sure that we've explored all support options before we can conclude. But if that is so, there are medically prescribed way to address that, but you just need to ensure that you observe the right guidelines. You don't go marketing around breast milk substitutes, but in that situation, with the advice of experts and all that, the right thing can be done, but not in a way that undermines the overall purpose of breastfeeding. But let's even talk more about the support and explore the support options for the woman.
Can you quickly underscore that 1,000 days, the first 1,000 days, and how it's almost final? If you don't breastfeed, that's it. Please expand that.
The first 1,000 days starts from conception to 24 months of life, and we have evidence that that's the window where growth happens most, and then we lose the chance of, if a child is malnourished within that period of time, the losses are irreversible. And that's why it provides an opportunity for us to, it's just a clearing call for us to make the most of that moment and start with the mother, even from preconception, educate, support, and then ensure that they go for antenatal services, get all they need to get, and then get supported effectively with that period of time.
Victor Ajieroh, Senior Program Officer with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight with us, talking about this very important week. It's Breastfeeding Week, guys. It's healthy and it's safe.
Yes, and I had it for 1 whole year. How long did you have?
I'm not going to say that on international TV.
It doesn't matter.
But